Welcome back to the fifth session or the session 5 of the collective bargaining, unit 4. So here we are going to look at how we can bargain in good faith and some of the unfair labor practices that actually goes on within certain organizations. Now, so at the end of this session, you'll be able to define bargaining in good faith, identify steps to be taken by both employer and union to achieve good faith negotiation. Explain what you mean by unfair labor practices. Identify and explain the role of the union, employer, and the National Labour Commission in ensuring fair labor practices. Now, collective bargaining or bargaining in good faith. So, bargaining or collective bargaining is a good faith effort by the employer or its representatives and the union or its representatives to engage in a given and take process to achieve a willingly negotiated written document, which is binding, also known as a collective bargaining agreement. So here, collective or bargaining in good faith, basically we are saying that both parties involved in the bargaining activity or agenda should take the necessary step or effort to ensure that they engage and take processes to achieve a willingly negotiated written document. That is binding. That is binding. Now, a good faith effort in negotiation usually includes the following. So, for us to ensure a good faith effort in negotiation, we are saying that meeting and deliberating at reasonable times in order to negotiate the document or agreement. So, we should have a meeting and deliberation issues at reasonable time. There are certain times that it is not favorable to conduct a negotiation activity. So we should be able to know the time that is reasonable enough for us to be able to conduct this particular activity, to be able to come up with this agreement document. Then the parties being open to discuss and mandatory subject of bargaining process, including which, so we should be open. There shouldn't be any form of disclosure or disclosure. We shouldn't hide any subject matter pertaining to the bargaining issue, whether wage, hours, benefits, work rules and discipline and all that. We should be open. There shouldn't be any form of limitation. We should be open so that we will not go back and come back again that we are going to have another bargaining exercise. Providing requested information. So all requested information should be provided by both parties to the bargaining activity or agenda. Now, the Labour Act Section 97 provides for duty to negotiate in good faith as follows. So here, this is what the Labour Act Section 97 provides. All parties to the negotiation of a collective agreement shall negotiate in good faith and make every reasonable effort to reach an agreement. So there should be that effort to reach an agreement. They shouldn't stretch issues that are not reasonable, that will not help them to come into an agreement. For the purpose of subsection 1, either party to the negotiation shall make available to the other party information relevant to the subject matter of the agreement, as we earlier discussed. The parties to the negotiation of a collective bargaining shall not make false or fraudulent misrepresentation as regards subjects relevant to the negotiation. So there shouldn't be any form of fraudulent acts of misrepresentation of fact or information. Now, certain unfair labor practices. Avoiding unlawful practices, which the Labour Act terms as unlawful labor practices, is part of the management of the labor union process. And the Labour Act 2003 prohibits employers and unions from engaging in such unlawful labor actions. And the subsection 127 to 134 of the Labour Act are devoted to unfair labor practices. So we should be able to read some of these sections of the Labour Act. In a matter of fact, we should download or get the Labour Act and read them. We'll be able to understand or appreciate or allude to some of these issues clearly. These are some of the surfaces. So if you want to get the depth of whatever we are discussing, please make sure you make available to yourself the Labour Act. And all the documents that we are talking about, all the issues are in there. Okay. So on the part of the employer, let's look at some of the unfair. A person who discriminates against any employee because that other employee is a member of or an officer of a trade union is guilty of unfair labor practice. So there are certain instances whereby employers discriminate because of the fact that that particular employee belongs to a particular trade union or is a member of that particular trade union. Those people become an enemy to those people, and therefore they wouldn't want to see their faces. A person who seeks by intimidation, threat to dismiss or dismisses an employee or offer a punishment of any form that seeks to induce a worker to abstain from becoming or continue to be a member of an officer or officer of a trade union is guilty of unfair labor practice. Yes. So intimidating people, threatening them that you will dismiss them because they are a member of a particular trade union or an officer of a trade union, that employer is guilty of unfair labor practice. If employer or employers organization put forward any kind, sorry, hey, what any kind? So please eliminate this any kind. There shouldn't be any kind again. So any kind should not be here. So any kind of threat to intimidate the worker during negotiation of a collective agreement. Such employer are guilty of unfair labor practice. If an employer who takes part in the formation of a trade union or contributes in any form of its formation with the intention of adversely influencing a trade union, such an employer also becomes guilty of an unfair labor practice. So on the part of the employee, what they do that seems to be unfair labor. A worker or group of workers who by any kind of threat seeks to intimidate the employer during negotiation of a collective agreement is guilty of unfair labor. So we said the same thing for the employer. So the same thing also goes for the employee. If a worker carries on any activity intended to cause serious interference with the business of his or her employer that may result in financial loss. So if you are involved in any activity because you think you want the organization to lose certain financial benefits or certain you want the organization to lose certain profits, you are such unfair in terms of the labor practice. During normal working hours and without the consent of the employer, an officer or a trade union or any other person confers with an employee on the trade union matters while the employee is on the employer's premises. Such a person commits an unfair labor practice. Now, the role of the National Labour Commission. The National Labour Commission require or shall inquire into and determine complaints of unfair labor. So it is the duty of the National Labour Commission to be able to stipulate or make it clear that this labor practice is unfair according to their rules of procedure. So they have the right to say this is unfair or this is fair. It is not the duty of the employer organization or the employees organization or the employees union to say this is unfair or this is fair. Because whatever they are doing is being regulated by certain rules and what procedures. Where the commissions find that a person has engaged in an unfair labor practice, it may order to prevent the person from continuing to engage in such. So they have the right to prevent the person to engage in that. And again, the National Labour Commission also is responsible or play the role to reinstate the worker when the worker has been the worker has been treated unfairly. They need to ensure that that worker is reinstated, that the worker is being put into its original position to compensate the worker for any loss of earnings attributed to the unfair practice. So they need to ensure that that particular employee is also compensated. So basically, this is what we are supposed to take home and then read further about. Thank you very much.